Welcome to Edge of Intelligence, the podcast that dives into the real-world strategies behind AI automation and intelligent systems. I'm Carl Owen, a fractional CIO and AI advisor at Protelligent. Today's guest is Julia Komissarchik, the founder and CEO of Glendor. Glendor is a software platform for the removal of PHI from multimodal medical data sources. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You've worked across product, legal, and innovation. What patterns did you see that inspired Glendor?
Well, this is our company is in healthcare. It's one of those uh, opportunities for somebody like me, who's been in AI for over 20 years, to work in healthcare, even though I'm not a doctor. So that's one of the reasons why I am personally so excited about Glendor. But overall, our Glendor has been based on our experience with building AI models, where if the model doesn't have access to a large volume of data, it actually will not be effective. And one of the challenges that AI in healthcare in particular has is access to that data. Because unlike ChatGPT and other LLMs, which is trained on publicly available data, when it comes to healthcare, it has to be trained on patients' records, which are not just bits and bytes, but somebody's very private, very personal records. So we are addressing this problem of how can one have access to the data while still protecting patients' privacy.
A great need these days. Absolutely. Well, how did your experience navigating large-scale transformation inform the work you're doing now?
Same reason, same thing. Uh, any transformation that, for example, AI-based or research-based, relies on three things. One of them is models. Another is CPU, or now GPU, TPU. Tomorrow will be something else, and data. As far as the models are concerned, there are some very interesting developments recently, but there were also some models that were developed not so recently. As far as the GPU, that's a question of resources, access to those resources. But in our opinion, the third part, which is access to data, is what is most important. And that's the problem we're trying to address, or we are addressing.
What kinds of clients do you serve, and what kinds of problems are they typically trying to solve when they come to you?
Well, our clients or our customers, we are not a service, we're not a consulting firm, so this is just a piece of software, which
Mhm.
is not just, but it's a piece of software which can be used by customers. Our customers run the span of healthcare, so it will be labs, hospitals, research, universities, government, pharma, AI in healthcare, teleradiology. It can be, that's one of the things which I've personally really enjoy is the fact that we can work with so many different players in the space.
Is it just healthcare providers? Are you in the dental space as well? Or
We're in anything which is healthcare,
okay.
which can be a lot of things, and dental is part of healthcare. So it could be even insurance, but primarily it's the providers and the researchers and the AI community, AI and healthcare community.
What are some of the core services or frameworks you use to help organizations innovate more effectively?
Well, I wouldn't say we help innovate, help organizations innovate. What we do is provide a tool which can be looked at as a data filter so that the data can be transferred, but at the same time, patients' privacy can be protected.
I see. Oh, has since you guys started, how has your mission evolved since you launched? What are some of the things that you
Uh,
guys have learned since you've launched?
we spend a lot of time interviewing our customers because one of the challenges in AI and healthcare is the details, right? It's very important to talk to the clinicians, to talk to the potential customers. And that's what I was just speaking at an industry panel at the university conference. And that's exactly what we're discussing, that the best thing to do for any company, startup or otherwise, is to talk to their customers and then refine the message, and more importantly, not just the message, but the actual content of your product.
Do you guys integrate directly into the uh, practice management softwares, or how does your tool interface with your clients?
Our goal was to make it so that our tool is very easy to integrate, like 5 minutes type of integration rather than 5 years. So yeah, no, but in healthcare, there are systems that require a lot of training. We
Yes.
intentionally went that way, where it's very easy to start using it. We use so-called command line interface, which basically means you don't have to train your employees. They all have to just understand one concept, which is folder in, folder out. So folder of medical information is an input to the system, new folder with cleansed data as an output.
How is AI shaping your solution?
Well, we are AI company, so well, our technology is AI based. What I would like to think is that we are shaping AI in healthcare, not just AI shaping our product, but we are shaping the AI in healthcare, because by removing this boundary, this concern about sharing data safely without impacting patients' privacy, I think we can make a big difference in the industry, because AI as a tool is very promising. But without being trained correctly and with correct data and a large volume of data, it will not live up to its promise and will die. I mean, as a concept.
I know you don't want to share the secret sauce, but can you share a little bit about what tools and models you're using, and how you went about developing your solution?
Well, our concept is so-called hybrid approach, where we use quite a few different models. We take the best of them, we develop our own, and as a combination, we provide the tools so that what we're doing is very challenging from AI point of view, because it's how to recognize what was said or what was shown, how to identify sensitive information, and then how to remove it. All of this, from the AI point of view, is one of the toughest ones. So as a result, and that's another exciting part about our work, is we get a chance to work on the overused word of bleeding edge of AI.
Yes, yes, yes. And we actually, before we started this call, we were talking a little bit about ChatGPT and how sometimes it can
Yes.
hallucinate. Um, are you using generative AI solutions? And if so, how are you kind of handling that potential of the tool or the model hallucinating, and how are you handling
Mhm.
those kind of things?
Not as much, because basically it's not that applicable to what we are working on.
Hmm.
But more importantly, ChatGPT, LLMs, all these new models, it needs to be very carefully watched. Um, when I explain what ChatGPT does, I sort of imagine a really um, clumsy assistant, which likes to invent things if they don't know the answer. So uh, watch it closely. It's not somebody you want to delegate information to, but they can be useful, just as you know their just as long as you know their weaknesses. One of them is coming up with content. It's funny, right? You go to ChatGPT, or it's not, you don't have ChatGPT, any of them, and say, "Can you please write a post on the subject?" And they start writing before even you waiting for your input. The value of those writing is not that big, and I think LinkedIn is now. Um, and thankfully, because I got inundated with those messages, thankfully, it's starting to filter out those messages, the ones that were generated by AI and that don't have a lot of content, or the content is very generic.
Yeah, you got to be really careful with that. And I know that a lot of people are trying to use it and they don't really understand it. That's one of the main reasons I wanted to start this podcast. Is people can spell AI, but they don't really know how to use it and how to do their
Mhm,
prompts correctly to get what they're trying to do and all those kind of things. So
mhm.
yeah, I think that is a big problem still that exists out there today.
And actually, one thing which I would emphasize, coming from privacy world, keep in mind if you're writing if you're inputting something into the prompt, it will actually keep that information. So please don't input your information or your family's information or your patient's information, because A, it's illegal, but more, be very careful. Because if you've inputted something as banal as your phone numbers, but more importantly, some sensitive information, that information will be ingested and could reappear anywhere you might not want to see. So be very careful when you're using it. That's why, let's say if somebody is asking for medical information, first of all, I wouldn't rely on that advice. But let's say you want to, then at least make sure that you remove, don't submit the entire report or whatever you're submitting with the names and everything else. Just remove that information. But needless to say, I wouldn't recommend using ChatGPT or anything like that for medical information.
Well,
It's
and
good for,
ChatGPT, yeah,
I'm
and
sorry.
ChatGPT is not HIPAA compliant either. So,
Yes, precisely. But more importantly, think from when using any kind of application. Once again, not trying to hit on ChatGPT. There are quite a few of them, and all of them have their use. But keep in mind that you don't. It's like you're talking to a stranger. Don't disclose information you don't want to disclose. Just keep that in mind. It's not like it's going to disappear.
yes, agree. What's been the most promising use case that you've seen that you guys have come across in your space so far?
AI in healthcare in general is very promising. There are things that can be done. Just to go a bit more technical, there are certain models or certain solutions that are they're called zero false negative solutions. Well, they're not zero. Nothing is zero for AI, but what it means is that if it says there's nothing there to see, like let's say they were looking at mammogram, then it will be almost 100% sure. We can be almost 100% sure that there's nothing there to see. So with these approaches, one can sort of, uh, we're running out of radiologists, right? They don't have enough time to process everything. But with these models, we can reduce the amount of work that radiologists can do. If let's say, and mammogram is a very good example, people do them yearly, and 98% of them are usually negative, which is actually positive, right? In healthcare, what's negative is positive, what's positive is negative. But basically, nothing is there. If you can create models that will um, remove the obvious cases so that the radiologist doesn't have to waste time on them, that could help. That's one of the examples. There's plenty more. AI in healthcare in general has a lot of promise, but it has to be done right, because if it's not just an article which is not correct, which is a big deal, but it's not life threatening. Whereas with healthcare, it is. So everything is much more high risk and should be very carefully monitored.
Well, as I go into some of my client space, and they're wanting to um, launch into an AI agent or a chatbot to do, for example, tier one customer service, right?
Mm-hmm,
That's a obvious topic and a fairly easy implementation or use case.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm,
the challenge I'm seeing in a lot of cases is that it's a great opportunity for a workflow to make them more efficient,
mm-hmm,
and reallocate the resources doing that to what
mm-hmm,
they were probably hired to do in the first place.
mm-hmm,
But what I'm seeing is that the data is not sufficient to be able to do that, to be able to train a model based on their environment, because they've not had a data governance, or there's no structured approach to how they handle their data. And in some cases, quite frankly, they don't even know what data they have
mm-hmm.
to be able to train a model. So, I've been in the dental space a fair amount,
Mm-hmm.
and worked within our practice management software quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And even from practice to practice, there's no consistency with how things are done, how things are entered.
Mm-hmm.
The practice manager may implement things one way, and another one will call something different, or even
Mm-hmm.
code something different
Mm-hmm.
in their practice. How do you? I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you see that. How do you handle that? Do you are any of your clients asking you to help with that data governance, or come in and do any of that, or how do you navigate that?
Mm-hmm. Well, you're pointing out a very important question. But for us, and that's by design, our system is designed to work without interaction with us, meaning the data is processed on customer side and it's never shared with us. As a result, we're not involved into the nitty gritty of a customer, because the best way to protect patients' privacy is not to share data with somebody, with any company, including us. So that will be harder for me to answer. But you're absolutely right. It's very important to understand um, what data you're training it on, or what data you're inputting into the system, because usually AI agents are, it's not a training, it's a slight modification, right? The model has already been trained. And also what you're using it for. If you're using it to what's your address, or like where do I park if I want to go to your office, that's great. If you're using it for questions which might be medical, or anything which is more involved than just simple questions, for that you have to be very careful, especially in healthcare.
Yeah, I mean that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
So you guys are you basically have a hook into that practice management software. So you have access to their data, even though it stays on in their location, wherever
we
it
don't.
is.
We don't. We don't. Our software does. We as a company never.
Well, that's what I meant. Your software.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's what I was talking about. Um,
Yeah.
so with that, are your customers asking you to kind of expand your roadmap a little bit and get into maybe automating some of the other workflows, like I don't know, scheduling or
Mhm.
things like that?
Yeah, and that's actually a whole new division of AI and healthcare work, right? How to improve the workflows, how to do other things. We are asked, but that's not what we do. Our focus is privacy. Our focus is de-identification, which is quite a challenging project in its own. But yes, and there's actually very interesting research that is being done in terms of what kind of models are more uh, palatable for the practices, right? Because not everything, they will, they're not looking to improve things if it's just 10% of improvement, or if the modification will actually take more time than the original process. What they're looking for is to solve the biggest pain points. And yes, for that, my recommendation would be to talk to the customers. Because many times what I see is like, this is a great model, but nobody talks to the customers and they don't need it. So if you're asking me for advice on that, I would recommend to people who are actually going to use you. Because if you don't, you'll produce a product which will not be useful for anybody.
Always ask the customer. That's right. That's right.
Yes, exactly. Especially with healthcare, because they're very particular about what they're looking for. They're very particular about what pain points they want to solve at any particular time, because they have so many things to do at the same time.
Well, are you seeing any resistance to implementing AI solutions in the healthcare space?
Um, it's more of a, like they say with the state of Missouri, show me state. It's more of a show me. Prove to me that it's actually going to make a difference. I'm not going to just be experimenting. Because, from the doctor's point of view, because healthcare in general is a very um, uh, uh, conservative space in terms of
Mhm.
they want to change things, it will take a while. And that's good, right? Because you don't want to be experimented on as a patient. So that's one thing to keep in mind, that they're very cautious about change, not change for change's sake.
Right, right. Well, what internal processes have been some of the hardest for you to scale within your own firm?
Um, for me, it's we are a startup. We're IP and intellectual property intensive startups, very different from large companies.
Hmm.
So it's harder for me to answer that question. This is a question for somebody who has either a later stage, or somebody who from the get-go has to be much more um, process savvy, like any kind of restaurant. There it might be. It doesn't have to be. AI company, like any kind of restaurant, or anybody who needs to think through those, they would be a better person to ask than us.
I got you. Okay. Well, how do you manage knowledge and frameworks across, well, along with your client insights across your multiple engagements?
We keep really good notes, de-identified notes, but we keep really good notes, and we make sure that the team is aware of the feedback.
Are there any particular tools or systems you wish existed to support the kind of work you do?
No, but all of the tools won't make a difference anyway, right? You need to have a good like if we're talking about customers, you need to have a good CRM. There are quite a few different ones, and then it depends on your preferences. You have to have a lot of communication within your team, etc. But I wouldn't, no particular tool will come up.
Gotcha. Well, where do you want to take Glendor in the next 2 to 3 years?
Well, we want to make sure that the data that the medical data that is shared is protected, meaning it's de-identified. So we would like to be, the clinics of the PHI sanitization. That's why our product is called PHI sanitizer.
Are you looking to grow through productization or partnerships, or how are you looking to scale?
All of the above. You're always looking for partners. You're always looking to expand your customer base. So it's everything and anything which will help us. And then what does help? That depends on the use case. It depends on the vertical within the healthcare. So it's what is it? The MBA's first lesson is the answer is it depends, right?
Understand. Well, so how long? Tell us a little bit about the history of Glendor. How long have you guys been around? Um,
We've been around since 2017. We actually spent 5 years developing the technology because this is one of those tough regions in terms of how to develop this product. And we've been working with, as I said, pharma, hospitals, labs, government. It runs across the different parts of the healthcare universe.
do you mind sharing how many clients you guys have at this point?
We don't disclose that information.
Okay. Okay.
And also,
No problem.
quite often, it's not something that the clients necessarily want to advertise, right? Because this is very private for them as well, what kind of things they're using to protect their
Understand.
patients.
Makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Well, if you had all the revenue that you needed and all the tools that you needed, what would be that one moonshot project that you would want to go after, or that other problem that's out there that you would want to solve?
Actually, that's the problem that we want to solve, is the one that we're working on. It will take a while. It creates it needs a lot of different players, not just us. And that is, how do we make sure that since we're running out of doctors and AI in healthcare is here to stay, if it works, how do we make sure that AI in healthcare does work and work not only in certain hospitals that was trained, the data of which they were trained on, but actually across the let's say the states or across the globe. And that's the challenging problem that we as an industry are trying to solve.
Do you see other applications outside of healthcare for this? I mean, I can think of several, but are you
Yeah.
thinking of once this matures a little bit? I don't want to put words in your mouth, but are you looking at other verticals that you may try to go after? Because, like I said, I mean, this is pertinent to
Mhm.
many different industries.
Yeah, of course, and legal might come to mind, right? There's so many different places where privacy is so important and where we can be of help. Yes, absolutely. But for now, and for a very long time, we'll be in healthcare. That's the biggest headache. And well, frankly, somewhere where we can make a difference, right?
Well, and probably the most critical as well.
Yeah, that too.
Well, and I think with what you guys are trying to put in place, it solves one of the bigger concerns or biggest concerns out there with adoption of AI in that space, right? Is the privacy side.
Um, in two steps. So what I would say is if we solve the privacy puzzle and the AI models will be trained on large volume of data, then their quality will improve and then they will be adopted. So it's a multi-stage process. But yes, that's ultimately that's the goal. We need it. We don't have enough doctors. And
That
the situation
yes.
is basically population is getting older, population grows, the number of doctors doesn't. So we're going against the wall. I'm just hoping that we'll find a solution which will break that wall.
Especially in some of the rural settings and things like that.
Yeah, precisely. There's also so there was interesting research done a couple of years ago. It still holds true, where the data for studies comes from, and usually it's the coasts, and it's not in Carolina. It's the East Coast, Northeast, and California. When it comes to rural hospitals, when it comes to tribal clinics, when it comes to any other, states, individual states, it's the data there is very sparse for research, and that's a problem because AI models perform well on the data they know. So if they're not trained on us, they won't work on us.
Well, and
And by
you've got to think of right, and you got to
yeah,
eliminate the biases that are inherent in the training, in the data, and all that as
precisely,
well. So,
precisely.
um, does your tool? So, so you're masking the PHI. I get that part. Does your tool do anything to maybe address any of the biases that may be existent in the data, or is that something separate?
Uh, yes, but indirectly. So when we what we do actually we don't mask it because masking can be unmasked.
Well,
We
true.
actually yeah we cleanse it good. That's why we call it sanitizer. But one of the approaches to solve the problem with bias is to for the system to have access to a large volume of data. So it's not only trained on the sliver of population. So to answer your question, yes. But once again, it's a two-step process. What what we do is liberate or democratize the data because now it can be shared. And then the more data that's shared, the higher the chance that the bias will be reduced. Will it be reduced to zero? Never, right? It's unfortunately that's how it is. But by giving access to large volume of data, one can hope to reduce the bias.
Where do you see that data coming from to train those models or to fine tune the models? I mean, where are providers getting that information to do that training?
Well,
So
the data will be coming from us, from our hospitals, but also from us directly. That's why one of the interesting things is in the rare disease community, where by definition it's very hard to find data on those diseases. So the patients themselves are proactively sharing it with researchers. So at the end of the day, it's not even, nameless hospitals. It's the actual you and I and other patients, because we're all patients by definition. And that's something that I think will be very important to think through. Well,
well, when you're
how?
talking about when you're talking about uh, researchers, are you talking about like clinical trials and things like that? I mean, because I know that they struggle a lot. Pharma does as well, trying to get some of that data. And it
Yes,
seems like this would be a perfect opportunity to partner with them to do that.
yeah, precisely. But not for us, but for hospitals that
Right.
are data custodians because they work with patients who are the data source, right? So, yes, it's one of the biggest problems right now, and that's why we're so eager to solve it. And But what I would say is it's not just hospitals that need to think about it, it's the patients themselves. Because if the data is like one has to think about how the data is shared. If it's shared, am I privacy protected? But at the same time, is my data shared? Because if the models are trained on somebody else, they might not even work on me.
Hmm.
Just that's how AI works, right?
Right. 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 Well, for leaders out there that are navigating all this, What's one question they should be asking that they're not right now?
I always ask, I always like to encourage people to ask about how their privacy, like what kind of data do they share, which part of data do they share? Because it's not the question of not sharing data, but it's a question of let's remove anything which will actually be detrimental to the patient and then share the data. And that's what I encourage people to think about when they receive data, when they share data, especially when it comes to AI and healthcare, where the data is so sensitive.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
Good.
Well, where's the best place that any of our listeners can follow your work or connect with you?
Two places. One of them is our website. It's called glendor.com, name of the company. The other one is connect with me on LinkedIn.
Okay, perfect. Well, Julia, thank you for such a thoughtful and energizing conversation. It's been great. You guys are doing great work, and I think it's much needed at this point.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you
to
very
our,
much.
I'm sorry.
I just said thank you very much.
To our listeners, if today's episode sparked new thinking or surfaced challenges you're facing around scaling strategy, embedding AI, or enabling innovation, um, let's connect. Visit Protelligent.com or follow Edge of Intelligence on YouTube. Until next time, ask better questions, build smarter systems, and stay on the edge of intelligence.